Ugh, we've been in here for ages, Rainbow Dash sighed. She examined her surroundings carefully from time to time. Yep, still just stone walls. I know it isn't just exciting, just like hide and seek, Pinkie Pie said, as she jumped around her friend, seemingly without tiring at all. Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes, having tired of explaining it wasn't a game over an hour ago. She just remained silent and let the flood of words wash over her, continuing to walk through the long-forgotten hallways while wearing a gruff look on her face. Ooh! Do you think she's behind the corner? Or maybe the next? Or wait, she could be hiding on the ceiling! Huh, on second thought, she doesn't seem to be. Unless she's really good at hiding. Or, hey Dashie, are you listening? Huh? Rainbow Dash muttered upon hearing her name. Oh, listening. Right. Pinkie Pie suddenly jumped in front of her friend, blocking her path. I know what you need! Some motivation! Here we go, Dash sighed. Go past the next corner, past the nearest tree, cross over the mountains, and sail over the sea. Let's take a step together. Oh, and then you'll see. You'll reach your destination with me. Yay. Rainbow Dash stared at the pink pony in bewilderment. Do you have a song for everything? Pinkie pondered the question for a moment. Nope, she finally said as Dash walked past her. I don't have a song about singing. Ooh! Do you want to help me make one? She said as she jumped after Rainbow Dash again. I'll pass. Ah, you don't know how to have fun, Dashie, Pinkie pouted. Hey, I'm lots of fun, Rainbow said indignantly. It's just like I like other stuff, like, racing. They rounded the next corner, and Pinkie's face lit up with an idea. Then, let's race, from here to the end of the hallway. The Pegasus grinned smugly. You? Race me? All right, if you insist. They took their places next to each other, and Dash crouched down, ready to burst forward at any second. Pinkie seemed altogether more relaxed, just standing at an improvised starting line. Ready, set, go! Dash shouted, and she exploded out of the starting blocks. The hallways were quite spacious, so flying wasn't much of a problem. All she had to look out for was the other side of the wall. But even when taking into account her stopping distance, she could easily maintain speeds over twice that of an earthbound pony could hope to achieve. She touched down again on the other side of the hallway, and turned around triumphantly. I win, she shouted, but Pinkie was nowhere to be seen. The entire hallway was deserted, and there was no place to hide either. Pinkie? Dash said in a small voice. Yes? The pink party pony answered from right behind her, causing her heart to jump into her throat. Oh my gosh, don't do that! Rainbow Dash wheezed as she clutched her chest. How did you... You couldn't have passed me. There's no way. Silly filly, Pinkie said with a giggle. You still came in second place. She bounced off down the hallway again, leaving behind a perplexed Rainbow Dash, who eventually shrugged and followed her friend. But from the shadows, Cheerilee was watching them. It had taken her some time to track them down, but luckily, they were everything but silent. She had gotten a pretty good idea as to how Twilight had split up her troops. Cheerilee had found the first two in one of the wings, the second two in the centrum of the complex, and it didn't take a genius to figure out where the last two would be. She was, all in all, quite pleased with the order in which the culprits were presented to her. She kept a close eye on Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie as she crept through the inner sanctum, her mind working at full speed. She knew exactly where they were going, and they had already passed by a few traps which Cheerilee could have activated. She decided against doing so, because for the simple reason, Pinkie Pie's uncanny ability to predict seemingly random perils and occurrences. Most traps Cheerilee could throw at them would probably fail to reel Pinkie in, and Cheerilee wanted to avoid a repeat of the Applejack incident at all costs. At the same time, she couldn't underestimate Rainbow Dash either. She didn't have Pinky's strange senses, but she knew speed and agility like no other. No, just firing a trap likely wouldn't do it. But she already knew their strengths, and she had the means to turn those into their weaknesses. The two of them were still happily chatting when they finally turned a corner into the hallway Cheerilee had planned for. Of course, she hadn't given them any other options, slowly leading them to the desired path. They hadn't noticed a thing, and Cheerilee walked up to a nearby vantage point, which had a rich supply of levers and hidden buttons. She pressed one of them. It was time for the show to begin. And that's why you should never trust gerbils, see? Yes, I see. Rainbow Dash now registering the fact that Pinkie Pie was simply in indestructible good mood. A high-pitched screeching sound resounded throughout the complex. That was you, right? Rainbow Dash asked urgently. Please, tell me that was you. It was me, the other mayor responded cheerfully. Dash wiped the sweat off her brow. Phew. You know, for a moment there I thought... Suddenly the ceiling slid down with a rumbling noise, a few meters back from where they had standing, abruptly turning the hallway into a one-way street. How did you do that? Rainbow said, her jaw falling open. I didn't, Pinkie said, genuinely worried for the first time. But you said... Because that's what you asked me to say. Dash opened her mouth to provide Pinkie with a rather angry reply. But she cut herself short when she suddenly saw her friend's tail twitch, followed by a series of other twitches, flutters, and vibrations. The Pegasus swallowed. Was that... Pinkie stared at her with wide, open eyes, and then, as if the message finally got through to her, she jumped forward, wrapping her hooves around Rainbow Dash and pulling her to the ground. Duck! An arrow shot out of a hidden slit in the wall, firing right through the point where Dash's head had just been a second ago, before impacting the wall on the other side. Fast-moving object from the side, Pinkie exclaimed. Somebody's shooting at us! Dash was about to say something, again, when she felt a series of shudders and vibrations go through Pinkie's body, which seemed to last far longer than anything she'd felt before. Big one? Pegasus Pony ventured to guess. That wasn't one, Pinkie whispered. Those were at least 5, which means we need to run! Dash, just like every pony in Ponyville, knew better than to argue with the Pinkie sense, and so she jumped up as soon as Pinkie gave the word, and not a moment too late. The very moment she took to the sky, and Pinkie performed a rather elegant forward roll, a barrage of arrows shot out from the ceiling, clattering against the floor exactly where they had just been. The entire hallway shuddered as the walls began to suddenly move towards each other, slamming into one another with a thunderous bang. Keep moving, Pinkie yelled, as a series of warnings hit her. But Dash didn't need to be told. She was already in the air, and ready to blast off, when wave upon wave of arrows started flying out of every surface in sight. And, to make matters worse, parts of the walls and ceilings seemed determined to turn any pony who passed at the wrong time into a bloody smear on the ground, or on the opposite wall. Left! Pinkie yelled at Dash as she dodged a couple of arrows and a falling piece of ceiling. Now right again! Forward! Oops! No back! Dash weaved and tumbled through the air, doing her best to follow Pinkie's directions while keeping an eye out for anything the Earth Pony might have missed. After a close encounter with a pillar that suddenly shot out of one of the walls, it was clear that not even Pinkie could give her orders fast enough for Dash to be completely able to rely on them. Luckily, she was by far the most acrobatic Pegasus in town. Any other would have already resembled a porcupine by now. What do we do? Dash yelled down as she continued to progress through the hallway slowly, hampered by the constant need to evade, often in a backwards direction, or wait for one of the stone pillars to react. Just right! Keep right! Going left! Pinkie said, quickly, running out of breath. Dash quickly glanced towards the end of the corridor as she ducked past 2 arrows, and she realized Pinkie had a point. For all the projectiles flying through her, around her head, The hallways up ahead seemed relatively calm. She just wanted to yell an affirmative answer back at Pinky, when a sudden scream made her turn around, just in time to see Pinky disappear in a hole that had miraculously appeared in the floor. "Pinky!" she yelled as she threw herself into a dive. Pinky's sense could detect every hazard around. How did her friend miss one so obvious? Dash dove into the hole in pursuit of Pinkie Pie, attempting to stay in the air as best she could. Pretty soon, the size of the hole decreased, and it angled upwards until it was more akin to a stone slide. It finally became so cramped that Dash was forced to retract her wings, and she started to slide down the tunnel instead. It didn't take long for her to catch a glimpse of Pinkie Pie in between the twists and turns of the slide. But her friend seemed to be in bad shape. Her descent had been quite uncontrolled, unlike Dash's, and so she seemed to be rolling down the tunnel, rather than sliding down it, crashing into the walls constantly. "Pinky!" Dash yelled as she tried to pick up speed. There was no reply. All of a sudden, the part of the tunnel that lay beyond Pinky and Dash changed. The wall slid forward, blocking off the path Pinky was rolling down. At the same moment, another fork opened up. Dash crashed heavily onto the wall, and her forward momentum catapulted her down the other chute. It didn't last long, though, as the tunnel suddenly became almost horizontal, and she shot out of it straight into a big metal cage. She crashed into its back wall, and fell down into a heap, as the door slammed shut behind her, all on its own. "Ow, ow, ow, ow," Rainbow muttered as she struggled to get up. "That's going to leave a mark." She looked around the room she was in, and found it to be mostly featureless. There wasn't even a door in sight. There was, however, another cage, similar to hers, on the other side of the room, and she immediately spotted her friend lying at the bottom of it, clearly unconscious. Rainbow Dash cringed slightly as she noticed one of her friend's legs was bending in a way it really ought not to. "Hey, Pinky! Wake up! Hey!" she yelled as she started to rattle the door of her cage, trying to open it. "We've got to get out of here!" But Pinky didn't respond, and Dash couldn't find a way to get the door open, no matter how much she rammed it or kicked it with her hind legs. "Ow!" she yelped as she felt something sting her side of the neck. She scratched at it with a hoof, and a little dart fell onto the floor beneath her cage. "What in the hay?" she said as her vision rapidly deteriorated. "Well, you can't wake her up, so why don't you have a nap as well?" Cheerily's voice rang out beside her. Rainbow Dash turned towards her, trying to focus her vision on the fuchsia-colored blur that she knew to be the slightly older mare. "Cheery" was the last thing she managed to utter before collapsing onto the floor of her cage. Cheerily simply smiled. She had suspected that Pinky's senses would only work on somewhat random occurrences. Things falling from the sky or arrows being shot out of the wall in a certain sequence didn't care if there was a pony in the path or not. After all, and that they'd prove useless against a deliberate action, but she had still been sweating that when she manually activated the pit until she saw Pinky disappear down into it. The element of loyalty immediately tried to save her friend, of course, proving to be both more reliable and stupider than the average weed. Cheerily shrugged and got to work. There was a lot that needed to be taken care of.